Okay, we are recording, and I am here with author Michael Jackson. He is the author of the Ringlander. This is the first book in a series, Ringlander, The Path and the Way. And it was just such a pleasure to read this book. I did review it fairly recently on the channel. And Mike, it's just an honor to have you here. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've got lots to discuss today, folks, and I have some questions for Mike about self-publishing and how you go about that and what you can learn from that process. And we have questions about his influences in fantasy, and of course about the Ringlander series, and particularly The Path and the Way, as it's the first book and it's out and getting some great reviews out there. You're currently on a virtual tour, aren't you? And I feel like it's going pretty well. Is that your sense?
I'm hesitant to talk about it too much because I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, we're on day 12 of 18, so 2/3 of the way through, and it's been a lot of 4s and a lot of 5s star ratings. So I'm really pleased. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm just so happy to be part of that. So thank you for including me, because it's really, I think it's a great thing that we can do as a community, is to support each other and to promote great fantasy, especially, of course, self-published. So it's one of the things that we here on BookTube can participate in. And I certainly enjoy that a lot. So I'm really happy to be part of this. But let's get into the questions here for you. So I've got some, I think, some good ones. So first of all, how many books are going to be in the Ringlander series? Do we know this yet?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting because I've done a couple of interviews over the past kind of couple of days, just like mostly written, well, all written apart from this one. And I've kind of looked at lots of different questions and lots of different answers, and it's made me think about things as well. Because I mean, I've obviously been focusing on the first book quite a lot. Now I'm in that sort of marketing stage for it, which is stopping me from being creative on the rest of the book too. Yep. But it's still a good place to be. So I've got books 1, 2, and 3 planned out, but 1's obviously written. 2 and 3 are outlined. 2's on the way, and I've written a short story that prequels the first book as well.
Oh, cool. All right. So that's good to know, because that was one question I got when I reviewed the first book, was how many books are going to be here? So I'm sure some people will be happy to hear that answer. So speaking of having to do marketing now, and that pretty much puts the stop to your writing, to that creative part of your brain. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff you have to do to make this work as a self-published author. So can you walk us through some of the things that you've learned, from this whole self-publishing process? Because I'm quite confident a lot of my viewers are aspiring writers and people who would just want to know about self-publishing, and people who would want to support self-published authors. So, and at some point during this explanation of what you learned from self-publishing, I would love to hear the story behind this beautiful cover, if you don't mind sharing that, because I'd love to know how this came about as well.
It's such a broad subject. I mean, for me, talking about the cover is quite far along it's like sort of towards the end of the process for me.
Yeah.
Although I'm not really sure that the way that I went about things was particularly efficient. I mean, technically, I come from a sort of front end code background and design background, so getting into the ecosystem that is the KDP, or the Amazon KDP for self-publishing, was fairly easy. It was just sort of following processes, and I can do that. That's no problem. But just like following a method on like making a cake or something like that. You do step 1, step 2, step 3. You need to do this. You need to do that. It's got its quirks, obviously, as well. I mean, it's still like a closed ecosystem. So you'll find that sometimes the user interface is like, there's little bugs here and there. Like if you upload something and it's working and loading on the page, for example, your manuscript, your baby, the thing that you have spent all this time on.
Yeah.
You upload it to this like applet server ancient thing on the KDP website, and watch the thing spinning, and it says don't refresh the page, and you wonder what would happen if you refresh the page. So they've still got a while to go, I think, before they're up there in terms of the best like ecosystems out there. And it can be, bringing it back to the sort of the new self-publisher, it's quite daunting walking into that world.
I'm sure.
There's a lot of stuff to have to think about.
Yeah. Just for those like me who aren't quite sure, and probably more people know than I do, but KDP stands for?
It's Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I figured it was Kindle and publishing, and the D part I wasn't sure about.
Yeah, I think it's direct. Like, you've got me questioning it now. I'm sure it is direct.
Okay. All right. No worries if that's not quite right. But yeah, so we get the idea. So that platform is something that you decided to use. There are lots of different platforms, of course, for the aspiring self-publishing author, I'm sure. What made you go with that choice?
Amazon is sort of the double-edged sword of the industry. I think they are they kind of own the industry almost. But what they've done for self-publishing is just incredible. It's and everywhere I've seen, all of the material I've been exposed to, all the marketing I've been exposed to, is all sort of Amazon centric. And it was only when I started the Amazon process that I've realized that kind of Kobo or Kobo, I think I've got one, or
maybe.
Yeah, an Apple Store I've got one, and there's something you can do with Lulu, and there's like all
that I've heard of. Yeah,
and there's so many different things. But I just chose Amazon because I've been using Amazon for years. So yeah, and it was there, it was ready to go. Okay, so ease of use or just familiarity and the ability to get your stuff out there is probably the greatest if you're going through Amazon, would you say? Or yeah, I mean a lot of people use Amazon. It's got its fingers in many places. Yeah, they're pretty massive, to say the least. So yeah, and they are good as well. I think there's the argument about how Amazon affects book sales and independent stores, and that's very much in my mind, I think, when I was kind of initiating this process. But yeah, they did make it easy. Yeah. It's really cool how you can go from, like, I mean, I just looked into it one night. I was just kind of like, right, let's see how you do this. And 2 hours later, I had uploaded my manuscript and I was on the way. I'd set the draft process going, and it was astounding how easy it is. Great. Yeah. And of course, before you did any of that, you had to write a book, right? Yes. So that's kind of a task you have to get done before you can be a self-published author. So I'm sure that you went through all kinds of drafts and so on and so forth. So yeah, what are other important insights you gleaned along the way of self-publishing, and anything that sticks out to you during the process? Well, I think, I mean, there's kind of two sides of it. I think there's the technical side, the ability to actually get the book into a system and understanding all of the nuances within the system. So they've got things like expanded distribution. Okay. And it literally is just a tick box within the process, and it doesn't really explain hugely what it is. I mean, the scale and scope of expanded distribution, I don't think is done justice by the fact there's a tick box there and a label, that says expanded distribution. Because if you tick that box, it means that like Book Depository and Barnes and Noble and all of these big American stores as well. I mean, I'm in the UK, right. And as well as little UK stores and not so little UK stores. I haven't seen it on Waterstones yet, but you tick that box and your book suddenly appears in these places. Wow. And it's all automated. It's all a big machine that works with itself. So that was kind of surprising. Wow. So you've got that technical side, then you've got the design side, I guess, and the marketing aspect as well. Those are the two kind of main areas I think that I found. Right. It sounds like the possibilities are greater than ever for self-publishing authors, though. It sounds like it's better than ever than it's ever been before, with all this support that's out there and the apparatus that's already existing for you to just plug your book into. And of course, you have a lot of work to do to market it and everything else. But very cool. Okay, well, we got to hear about this cover then. So how did you get such a beautiful cover for this book, which has been now
it was up for I think some pretty prestigious awards as well, right? This cover.
Yeah, so I happened to excuse me, I happened to finish it, like the final drafts, around sort of I think it was about April this year. And as I say, like the paperback release date on Amazon is like the 27th of April.
Okay.
So it was a very short period of time from finishing that final draft to going up with it. My plan, I did have a sort of sparse plan in my mind, which was to do a soft launch first. And this is something that I kind of gleaned from, I think they're called Jericho. They're like a writing school.
Okay.
That I get newsletters from, and they're really, really good. I think they're UK based, but definitely worth checking. If you Google Jericho and writing, you'll find them. But
good tip.
Yeah, they're really, really good. Like, and one of the things they said was that if you do a soft launch, hard launch first, so let the book kind of get it out there, you're not telling necessarily everyone, you're not going on all your social media channels and harping on about the book. What you're doing is you're getting your friends to buy it, their friends to buy it, to review it, getting it in the hands of reviewers, and generally getting ARCs out there, or advanced review copies out there, to create a bit of a buzz about it.
Okay.
And then your hard launch is for me, this is the method I have. I mean, again, I have no idea if this is the best way to go about it. But I chose to do the hard launch literally with the hardback. So I took the hardback. It got launched in September this year, and along with the virtual tour that started in mid-September. I have one here actually. I came prepared.
Oh yeah, sweet. Yeah, that looks great. Yeah.
So it's got the whole kind of dust jacket thing going on, and naked cover as well. So.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that nice? Huh.
The artist, John Anthony Di Giovanni, is just incredible. The work he does is just.
Yeah. And how did you find him?
Well, I know I can see you want that answer.
Yeah, I do.
So I did the hard launch, and I synced it up with my virtual tour, and hence this is where we are now.
Yep.
But during the process, it was about August last year, I started looking at artists, the people that I follow. As I say, I've been in design business for about 20 years. So yeah. I've been following like really great artists for many years. And I feel like I've got a pretty good eye for, good digital artists. And
yeah,
I've not necessarily been talking to a lot of them, but I kind of knew the landscape. I knew who they were and who they worked for. And a lot of them we're talking, like one of my favorites was a guy who worked for Bungie, like who worked on the Halo games.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah, and I had no idea if this guy was ever going to respond to an email or anything like this. But I had this big digital whiteboard of all my favorite artists and some of their work, and got possibly a little bit obsessive about picking one. I got in touch with a few of them, and John Anthony Di Giovanni was one of them.
Okay.
An artist based in Canada, and I sent him some work. I sent him one of the scenes that I was quite proud of, and it was quite evocative and very scale-wise. It was pretty big. And yeah, he came back to me and he was like, "Yeah, I'd be interested." And that was literally as easy as it was. It was just
cool.
He just it's just people at the end of the day. I think this was the thing that surprises me so much, was just if you ask someone who's really good, don't be that's the advice I would probably give someone who's embarking on self-publishing is don't be afraid to get in touch with these people. They're just people. They're, and artists especially, I think they want to work with people who design like worlds and create characters and things like that. It's exciting fodder to bring into a digital painting. So
wow.
I still count my lucky stars that John jumped on board, and he's a lovely guy. I've had some video calls with him and obviously some backs and forths with the actual design process. And
oh, how cool. Yeah. Did he do the other art that I've seen, like on this bookmark here, associated with the book, or do you have other artists?
No, so he did. I've got some. I've got the full kind of suite. So I did I've got some character cards made.
Oh, cool. Oh, wow.
And there's 9. It's kind of hard to show up the camera, but there's like 9 separate scenes. from the book, like character pairs. And the chap that did them is a guy called Jonathan McEnroe.
Oh, okay.
And he's actually someone that I used to work with. I was in the games industry for a while. Excuse me. And he's a lovely, lovely guy. And but he doesn't do digital painting as his job or anything anymore. So,
Okay.
But I'd always had it in my mind that he was very good at what he did. So it was a bit kind of in my mind. It was a bit risky, kind of getting involved because I mean, there was no kind of guarantee that the output was. I really wanted to keep the production levels high on this project. Like,
yeah,
I really wanted to be creating some really nice work. So so I tentatively got in touch with Jonathan, and it was great just reminiscing with the guy. I've not seen him in years, so but he gladly jumped on board. And the first piece that he did was this.
I love it. Yeah.
And he just blew me away with his talent. He is just incredible.
Yeah, that's a great one. I know who they are too. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Wow. Well, let's move on to the next question then. And I'd like to plumb your mind for your literary influences. So who and what are some of your most important literary influences? And you can include, be as wide ranging here as you want. It doesn't have to be fantasy, but of course we want to hear your favorite fantasy authors. But also, are there other genres that you like that have been inspiring for you? Films, anything of that nature? And especially if you don't mind, at some point comment a little bit on whether or not some of those influences have a special impact on Ringlander.
I think at this, I mean, I've been designing stuff for like a long time, and there's definitely parallels between design work, creatively speaking, and designing worlds, creating characters, and building stories and scenes. So when I was kind of studying the lore of how to be a writer, I was trying to kind of get my writing chops up to the same standard as the rest of the creative soup in my mind. So, I started there, but I've always been a fantasy fan. So I had to write a fantasy novel. I absolutely had to. And I started writing it about sort of 8 years ago. And it was the jump in the deep end. Kind of, if I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to write novels. And there's some great advice by Brandon Sanderson: is start writing novels. Don't write short stories first. Just jump straight in. And
I agree. Actually, short stories are harder anyway.
Totally. They've got their own unique little challenges that are completely different to novel writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of I looked at all these greats, and well, first of all, it's kind of intimidating, but I find myself kind of, at the time I was really into Robert Jordan's work, like the Wheel of Time series.
Sure, yeah. I
just finished it. So I think there's probably quite a lot of Mr. Jordan, I've got this multi POV style that I've kind of chosen for Ringlander.
Yeah.
And it's like a racing line that starts off with kind of a lot of different kind of looking through the cameras of lots of people's eyes. And there's one main POV is obviously the Kira. She is the main character. She's the main thread. But there's a few other kind of point of view characters that I've explored. I've tried to explore it anyway in a bit more depth to kind of keep the world rich and keep the story rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be because I'm such a young writer. I think it's hard not to be kind of inspired by the people that you read. Yeah. Jordan's there and Abercrombie's there. Like, I absolutely love his work.
Same here. Yeah, I'm reading Wisdom of Crowds right now, actually.
Oh, really? Is it good?
It's fantastic. The guy gets better with every book. I don't know how he does it, but yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
I just finished A Little Hatred actually about 6 months ago.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. So I need to get on the second one.
Trouble with Peace. Yeah.
Trouble with Peace. But I'm currently reading. I'm actually reading. This is my first Mark Lawrence book, so The Prince of Thorns.
Oh, nice! I love Lawrence's books. Yeah, awesome.
He's just a genius. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I've had it for a while. I just really wanted a short, kind of sharp grimdark. Yeah, I love grimdark. I love how like dark things go, and I think if you are a fan of grimdark, you'll probably like Ringlander, because
Yeah.
I haven't shied away from the more kind of brutal aspects of conflict, I guess, and things that can happen. And I'd like to not shine a light on it per se. I mean, I don't like gore for gore's sake. I mean, but they really, there's some really kind of. I mean, I think you said that in your interview as well, your review as well.
Yeah. No, it's you definitely kept me on my toes, because I had the feeling that the stakes were high here, and in any and just, I guess that's an element of verisimilitude here, where you have characters who are in very dangerous situations, and realistically, some of them are going to die, and so you kept me kind of nervous about some of the characters, because you did show that willingness, and so yeah, the Abercrombie influence definitely makes sense to me. Did you ever read Martin's stuff, Song of Ice and Fire, any of that stuff, or?
I did. I started it,
Okay.
and it was just so. It was such a tome that I just couldn't. Like, I couldn't. You know, I'm gonna say that I was at the wrong point in my life to start Game of Thrones.
That's fair. Yeah.
I love the TV series, at least until season 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
but the book was it's a big undertaking. But
Yeah.
I think I would say there's definitely some of Martin in Ringlander as well. I think just that he taught. I think he taught a whole world of authors that, like, you can kill off characters. You can do this, and it doesn't have to be this big kind of, you know, someone can. That's what life's like. That these awful things can happen without any sort of warning or like big furor. It can just happen. So.
Yeah, I found there's an authenticity to that I kind of find compelling, actually. And I think that's something more you find more and more often in modern fantasy, is that it can be a little more visceral, but it can also feel more authentic, with the willingness to kill off, you know, beloved characters. So, but yeah, John Gwynne does that too. I don't know if you've read his books or not, but
I haven't. I almost started Malice, actually. I was about 2 months ago. I was looking for something to read, and I ended up on Mark Lawrence.
Oh yeah, well, you can't go wrong with Lawrence, in my opinion.
Can't go wrong with Lawrence, yeah. But I was holding Malice in my hand, and I was holding Prince of Thorns in the other.
Oh wow.
and I ended up choosing Lawrence, but Malice is on the list. I actually spoke to John. Like, I run a little author interviews website where I kind of and I spoke to John about getting him on. But I don't think it was the right time for him, and it ended up fizzling out, so we ended up not doing it. But
okay, huh? Yeah, he's a super nice guy. I had the chance to talk to him once, and he's just such a really pleasant, warm human being. And I do know his sons a little better too, because they run a booktube channel as well. The Gwynn brothers.
It's his sons, isn't it? This is the brothers Gwynn. I thought I had recognized. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a family resemblance there. So yeah, no, and they're just such really wonderful people. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. Well, cool. So have we missed any other important influences for you?
Probably. I mean, it's just a thick soup of inspiration, isn't it? I mean, I love H.G. Wells stuff. There was a big inspiration on me when I was younger. Just he's got such a way with the dramatic, and it's absolutely timeless as well. I mean, it hasn't aged at all, really. His work's fantastic, and I've always loved Wells stuff. I've got quite a number of his books and short stories. Who else? Who else have I been reading recently? To be honest, I think it's been quite difficult juggling like marketing for Ringlander, and the planning like stages of it, and trying to find time to like sit and enjoy a book. It's quite challenging. I started V.E. Schwab's Darker Side of Magic.
Yes, I've read that. Yeah.
And I just I just wasn't right in the right place to enjoy it, and I could feel myself just like I want to enjoy this, but I'm being interrupted, like family life and things, and it's just like let's just put it down and come back to it. And
It's something I've heard Joe Abercrombie talk about in a few interviews, actually, is that he can't read epic fantasy anymore. He just can't do while, especially while he's writing, you can't do, it's like you're trying to use the same part of your brain or something. And it's just something, I feel this, anyway, I hear in his voice a little bit of wistfulness about that. Like, I'd love to, but it's just, you can't use that part of your brain constantly, I guess. So yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, how about in the real world? Are there some real world places and cultures that were inspirations for the various settings and cultures in Ringlander?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the story when I first began it had a very, very present, shall we say, parallel worlds vein through it. So I was kind of looking at what things that we've got in our history, and a lot of Scandinavian cultures and Inuit tribes, Sami tribes, Mongolian, like Northern Russian, all the way over to Tibet, and historically, like how these like kind of conflicts played out over time, and there's obviously a lot of interesting like fodder there for a writer, and there's a lot of conflict at that time. So, but then ultimately, I kind of pulled away from that a little bit and kind of decided to focus on more of a fantasy story. So something that was self-contained as a fantasy universe, rather than trying to be too clever with it and make it a parallel thing. But there were some details that were crossover from our world to the Ringlander universe, and I just really liked them, and I could have changed the name for them and kind of made them a bit more obscure and abstract, but to be honest, I really liked the homage to these things like the Sami. I really liked your comment on the in your review, the Viking. A lot of the Scandinavian kind of inspiration is kind of straight to Viking, and I don't get me wrong, I love especially the show The Vikings. I was just like, it was fantastic. But
that was cool. I really enjoyed seeing that in there. The Sami is one thing I definitely noticed, and you use the word Sami, so I mean you made it very clear in there, and you mentioned the Inuit as well. And I haven't seen that a lot in fantasy. I can think of in like Tad Williams does it in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. There's I think the character's name, if I can recall it, Binibik or something. He comes from a sort of Inuit inspired culture, I think. But it's not something you see a lot. So I was really happy to see you doing it here in Ringlander. It was really cool, actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
And of course, it's Kira's, is we won't say anything specific about her yet, but that is where she's coming from. And that it just, I think that was a wonderful choice for your main POV.
Thank you.
Coming from that culture. Yeah. She's really something. Yeah.
She was like so easy to write. She's just I think there's I don't know if I'd like to admit it, but there's a big piece of me in there. She just kind of flowed off the end. I want to say pen, but I wasn't using a pen. I was kind of typing.
We're all typing these days.
I was using a quill actually to write.
That would be so cool. Nice. Well, that's awesome. And anything else you want to say about the cultures, or I mean, we haven't gone, because I haven't commented on it yet here, but I really love the way this map is. This is the place, right? And so we've only encountered maybe like a quarter of the place so far. Is that pretty fair to say? Oh, you've got a better map there, yeah. Oh, that is so awesome. Yeah.
And so the story is kind of like localized around this area.
Yep.
And it's kind of like this view on the camera is kind of backwards on me. I don't know if are the words backwards for you, or
no? I think our viewers will see it the correct way. Yeah.
So the main story happens there, and around that sort of area. But again, the obsessive in me comes out, and I start looking at the whole purpose of the book, and like Rengus, I think actually literally means ring, in like Swedish or something. I was writing one of the drafts and editing one of the drafts. I think it was sort of like draft 8 or something. And one character's talking to, I think it was Duga, was talking to Laban. And it's not a spoiler or anything, but he sort of says, he refers to them as these Ringlanders, as a sort of way of saying these people that are on the mainland, because they're from an island.
Yeah.
and I thought, that's cool. And it sort of stopped me, and I was like, that's really interesting. But I kept on going anyway, and it just stuck in my head for ages. I couldn't get rid of it.
Huh.
And it ended up becoming kind of the name of the series, and the big kind of push for the first book. So and it's such a unique term as well. It's really easy to
Yeah.
say, really easy to find.
Yeah.
And it helps me kind of figure out the shape of the world, like Ringlander. It's like, but obviously it's a
Yeah.
so
No, it's very cool. I feel like there's going to be in future books some explanation of how we got this shape. Maybe I don't know, but it seems like an intriguing aspect of it. And I love maps anyway. So, but very cool. Yeah, Ringlander, perhaps a little reminiscent of Highlander. I don't know, but yeah, it just works really
yeah,
well. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
yeah, nice. That's very cool. So, yeah, on the cover also, I want to point out how it says a journey of loss and discovery. So I'd like to talk before the last thing we're going to do is to talk spoilers, and which is I think going to be fun
Cool.
because there's just a lot of cool moments in this book, which I do think is visually. I think you are. I mean, it doesn't surprise me your kind of visual background because there's a lot of cinematic moments in the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of cool moments to talk about. But before we do that, before we get into spoilers, I'd like to talk about the themes that you've incorporated in here because I think a lot of readers like to hear about that before diving into a book. Like what is this about? What's the essence of this? And so a journey of loss and discovery. So without getting into spoilers yet, what's lost and what is discovered in the book? And we can segue from there into other themes as well.
I'm going to come back to your review again.
Yeah.
I really like the way that you described the three views. So you've got
Yeah.
the personal level,
Yeah.
and then the social level, and then the sort of the world level, I guess, like
Yeah.
various zoom levels. And you're right, I'm a totally visual person. Like my wife, we just bought an electric car, and my wife was trying to tell me how to use it earlier today. And the very fact that she was telling me what to do, I don't know what she was saying. I was like, what, you want me to change the lever on the, what, I have no idea. But if she showed me a picture, I'd be there in a second, like, but anyway, come back to the question. The three views, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, and I really wanted to focusing in on that personal level.
Yeah.
We as readers are obviously we're gonna associate with the characters. It's always going to be the case. A lot of readers will associate more with the plot. That's why they read books, is for the plot. Some people for world building, and I totally get that. But I really wanted to kind of shine a light on the characters, and I did a lot of work on the character arcs of each point of view character.
Yeah.
And where they go, and what they gain and what they lose. And when it came around to, I mean, John did a fantastic job of the illustration on the front cover.
Yeah.
But the rest was kind of up to me. So I took his work, and I needed to make it into a book cover, which I'd never done before. But
yeah,
I was using all of the books behind me. I don't know if you can see that. I've got a big bookshelf behind me.
Yeah.
And I had stacks of books, and I was just kind of looking at how I was going to kind of bring this all together, like the title and the capture line and stuff. And
wait, so are you saying you did the layout work yourself?
Yeah. It's
wow. Huh.
I did it. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, there are people who do that for a living. So yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. Really nicely done. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I mean, you can pay someone to do that for you as well, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you give them all the assets and things. So,
right.
I mean, that's something worth mentioning actually on the self-publishing level. If you can get like an artist who will create a cover for you, if that's what your jam is. And I mean, if you're doing a fantasy book, for example, then maybe big digital painting is what will suit you best.
Yeah.
Or maybe you want to kind of go a bit more abstract. I mean, that doesn't necessarily work for the, say, literary genre. So maybe you want to kind of go a bit more sort of symbolic for something like that. And in that case, you're still using an artist, but you'll still need someone to bring it all together, I think. Your artist will generally do that separately. And then you would maybe have like a layer artist or a graphic designer to kind of take all these elements and make them into a book.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the personal level, and this is on the back cover, so it's not a spoiler, but the personal journey has a lot to do with our main character, Kira, and she is seeking her lost brother. And so there's a lot of familial themes that go along with that journey that are, I think, really well done in here. So that's an important central, really at the heart of the story. But she's in this journey of hers, and she meets other characters along the way who are also POV characters. But this is in the midst of a crisis. This is the social level. There's a crisis going on. There is a conflict going on, and it has some, there are some, I guess, racial components to that that we have here with the, how do you pronounce it? The Boer, is that how you would pronounce it? Yeah. So there's that going on as well, and this bigger level, and this conflict, and you can sense that there's some real dissolution that's happening, and things fall apart, that sort of thing, and that's going to have some real major consequences, and you have characters thinking about their various loyalties in the midst of this, and it's messy, right? It's messy, and people get hurt, and it's scary, and so that's the kind of the context of her journey, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely, that's it, right, nail on the head. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this other layer, which is we're getting more glimpses of as the story progresses. I mean, you hinted at it fairly early on, but it becomes bigger and bigger as we get through until, I mean, the climax is really something when you kind of have all these elements thrown together at once, and everything, the personal, the social, and this vast cataclysm that is descending on this place. All of it is just blowing up at once at the end, and so it's a really good climax there with all that going on. So, but yeah, that also, this is not a spoiler because it's on the back cover, everybody. So there is this holes between worlds thing going on. So that sounds really cool. That's got me really intrigued. This idea that we could be dealing with perhaps multiple realms here, or I mean, it's pretty awesome. I love what that. But yeah, I mean, we don't know yet. I'm just going on with what's going on
no,
here.
totally. It's not a spoiler even suggesting that. But it's more for me to not say anything. Because
Yes, for sure. I'm sure you have learned to bite your tongue at this point.
Really hard. Yeah, it's you're just like, well, you'll just have to read it for yourself. But yeah, I've heard that people are really enjoying it, and that the pace in it has kept people entertained up until, and it does have a large crescendo at the end. So as you say, it all comes together.
Well, that's not a spoiler either, really, because that's a fairly, it's what you're supposed to do in fantasy, right? You're supposed to have this big crescendo, this big, convergence of everything at the end, and boom, So yeah. I mean, Jordan definitely did that in every single time book, right?
Yeah, just that you literally pulled the words right in my mouth. Jordan was so good at it, and I think that's definitely present in my work. It's I wouldn't even try and hide that. I think the multiple POV. I mean, Edmund's Field, when it starts, it's a longer beginning. I think Rand gets a lot longer in the Eye of the World before they kind of split. And their parties go their separate direction. I think you're about a third of the way through when Perrin and Matt kind of go away from. Sorry, spoilers if you've not read either.
I haven't read Wheel of Time. Yeah, that's not a big spoiler, but yeah.
And I think that's something that's not so much present in Ringlander. I kind of get straight into the guts of things.
Yeah, no, I would say if we're comparing the two, the pacing is a lot faster in your work than in Jordan's, which is expansive. It is vast, and I don't think that's what you're going for here. You're going for a much pacier, hard hitting, and in that sense, I think a little bit more modern fantasy than what you see in Wheel of Time, for sure. Yeah,
I think that's what Abercrombie does so well. You're like right there. You're like, there's no like info dumps or anything like that. You're dropped straight into the middle of the torture chamber with Glokta, and you are being kind of tortured by this guy, and you're getting to hear his thoughts, which are like this cognitive dissonance between what he says and what he thinks, and it's just wonderful. And you're like, what is this? What is going on? Who are these characters? Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess like Abercrombie's there as well. I absolutely adored that, and I really did want to kind of. It's kind of a strange merging, I guess, of this like Jordan
Yeah.
inspiration and then
Yeah.
Abercrombie.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I think I'm tempted to now start with the spoilers because you reminded me of some things that I want to talk about, but I can't talk about them
Sure.
without referring to something specific. Specifically, I mean, this is not spoiler, but the way you begin the book is very, for me, I thought immediately of the blade itself. I actually thought, oh, this is like the blade itself when I read your opening.
Awesome.
So yeah. I don't know if this was like in your head or not, but that's what I felt when I was reading the very first page of Ringlander. So yeah. So speaking of that, I think it's time for us to talk a few spoilers just for a wee bit here. So if you have not yet read Ringlander, what are you doing? Go out and buy it. And we're gonna talk some just some favorite moments for me, and hopefully I'll be able to pick your brain a little bit, Mike, here, and get some. Well, I won't be looking for spoilers for the next books. I don't want to ruin it for myself either, but yeah, we'll talk some spoilers now. So thank you
Sure.
so much if you haven't yet read it, but you've listened to this far, and hopefully you'll enjoy the experience of reading Ringlander.
Thanks, Ken.
So let's talk about that opening. That is really something. I thought you just got me there right away with that. And that was just the very first sentence. I mean, we're in the middle, in medias res, right? You just dropped us, boom, right into the middle of Kira fighting for her life, right?
I think well, I know. I mean, I wrote that as originally it was the third chapter in that earlier book. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, it was the introduction to Kira, and I knew that I always wanted Kira to have that as an introduction. I absolutely wanted to. Like, she's not the female warrior type. I wanted to make that kind of difference very, very clear. She's not like a badass warrior. She's not like when you meet Pharaoh in Before They Were Hanged. I think it's Before They Were Hanged in the First Law.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you get the impression that she is she's badass sort of like female warrior.
Yeah. Don't mess with her. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she's so apart from being so cool as a character, I didn't want that for Kira. Like Kira is very pragmatic. So, but she's in this position where the pragmatism just will not help her. So she's forced to be quite violent to survive.
Yeah.
And I like that sort of beginning up here. The high contrast, the right up at the top of the conflict on the very first sentence. And I thought, why not? I mean, it feels like, I've got a statement to make here. Nobody knows who I am as a writer. I feel like I do need to kind of introduce this book, this new world, this new character in a way that's going to feel like you're going to remember it, and you're going to remember her. So rather than kind of go the whole kind of, she begins at home, she's kind of doing something like preparing food or like kind of doing something like Sammy-esque. And I've done a lot of research there, and I kind of did think that, but it didn't last very long. I started writing her straight into this, that first scene where she tears the slaver's throat out, and I stuck with it. I just loved it. And it was very early on. I mean, I started writing the book 8 years ago. That book, that chapter was written about. I mean, it was one of the first chapters I wrote for the book, so it felt right to make it the first chapter of the book.
It was a great choice. It was a great choice to lead off with that for sure. And I love her relationship with her father. I think that's one of the things that really fleshes her out for me is that relationship. And as a writer, you know that you need to tell your reader how to feel about a certain character through that character's relationships with the other characters. And the relationship with her father, it's not all warm and fuzzy necessarily. And she's not afraid to point out his faults to him. So there are moments when, she doesn't even want to call him father. There are those moments, but it's really something how even while that's happening, there's an inheritance there that's very, very important for the story as well, because they are what is it that they're referred to as pathfinders or what?
Watchers, yeah.
Path Watchers, thank you. Sorry, yeah. Path Watchers. Yeah, and so they had this in their lineage, in their ancestry, there's this map making skill, I guess, of a sort, right? And I think that's something that's going to be fleshed out a little more in future books, I suspect. But we get a bit of that here,
Not for you, it's for me, is to stop me.
Yeah, yeah. I love that too, because a lot of us fantasy fans love maps. So I mean, just incorporating that into the story was a nice stroke as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't you think that her relationship with her dad is an important part of her character too?
Definitely. And I can almost tell you the exact Brandon's. I mean, I listened to a podcast called Writing Excuses, and it's fantastic. It's got Mary Robinette Kowal and Brandon Sanderson.
Okay.
It's two kind of regulars on it. And they talk about the various kind of storytelling devices they've used. And I'm there typically for Sanderson because like, I'm a big fan of Sanderson.
Okay.
But he talks about, he's really, really candid about the ways and means that he uses. And so I've totally lost the thread. What we were talking about, the relationship between the daughter and that's it, yeah.
You got it.
And he talks about, rather, if you're kind of within the eyes of the character that you're writing,
right,
they're going to have a view of themselves, as we do as people. That's not necessarily going to be completely true of what the reader experiences or what the outside viewer sees of that person. So a good way to kind of highlight the nuances of someone's personality is to have someone else there as a sort of mirror. And the interplay between Ikaluk and Kira was just like ridiculous amounts of fun.
Yeah.
And because there's already a conflict between them. Yeah. It just jumped straight into it. I mean, we've all got conflict with our parents. It's like it's there for everyone. So it's something we all recognize, and turning it into something that meant something to the story and the plot was actually kind of easy. Making it clear was very difficult because it involves a lot of emotions, and it took a while to get an even ground to make it feel like these two are battling with each other and the reasons they are battling with each other. So basing that around the brother kind of felt like a really natural thing to do. Yeah,
it was well done. It's one of my favorite aspects of the book, actually. So really nice. And of course, the other member of the family who is missing in action here, although we get to see what he's up to. Kira and her father don't know for most of the time, but we get to see what he's up to. And of course, they do have their suspicions, knowing him. He's kind of got something to prove here, doesn't he? And how do you say, is it Hassan? Is that how you put it? Hassan, yeah. So he's kind of like a lot of young men at a stage in his life when he's trying to be his own person and making a whole lot of dumb decisions.
Yeah, I mean, this is Jonathan's representation of Hassan.
Oh, I see. Cool.
Yeah. And I loved it because it was kind of, he's in the, well, I mean, I'll show you again. He's in the dark and he's got this bar of light across his eyes, and he's kind of lost, and he's being kind of guided by Lore, who's standing behind him. And Lore says something quite significant in a Time and a Place chapter, I think it is, and he says something at the end, which is that boy's got a monster under his skin. Yeah. And I mean to let it out. And I think that's a sort of teacher, sort of student relationship that he wants to mold this guy. And that seems like all it is at the start, but then it goes a bit deeper later on when we find out that part of that reason is because Hassan himself is a path watcher. So he knows the routes, the paths, and the ways of Nord, which is the main continent where he is from, which happens to be the place that the Boar have yet to conquer. So
so it's a relationship. It's a dark twist on the mentor relationship.
Totally.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. So, and his journey, and we're doing full spoilers now. So, I mean, they do eventually, I loved when they, in the midst of the chaos at the end, when finally they see each other in the middle of a battle, essentially facing each other. I knew that moment was coming, but I wanted it so badly. And when it came, it was just, yeah, okay, this is great. Yeah.
Cool.
So to have them, you know, you knew they were going to be on opposite sides, and you knew that it was going to be a confrontation of some kind. And the absolute justified anger that Kira has for her brother at that moment, and not even wanting to think of him as a brother, but she can't let go of him as a brother either at the same time. Yeah. And it's just been this whole long journey of her trying to find him. And when it happens, it's just, you don't quite, I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't know how it was going to go down, you know? So it was really well done. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. I toyed with that for a long time. And that meeting was so important to the book.
Oh yeah.
It had to be good. It had to be, there's no question.
Yeah.
So there was the events that happened on the bridge. They went one way for a while, and I troubled over it for a long time, for a couple of drafts, and eventually I kind of rewrote it, keeping those kind of sections, and pulled the pieces together in a different way to end up being that they met in this particular fashion, and. Because I didn't want to completely. I mean, I'm all for the grimdark methods of doing what needs to be done and writing the awful thing not for effect, but because the story needs it or the character deserves it.
Right.
But I didn't want to scrub Hassan's goodness away completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there needed to be something that events had to happen in the heat of battle that brought them together, and there had to be a misunderstanding there. And I did want to retain that. I didn't want it to just be Hassan has gone so far down, you know, like Rick in The Walking Dead, like the whole series is like gearing up to him becoming the bad guy.
Right. Huh.
And for the longest time, I thought that's where I was going, but I got to that point, and I liked Hassan so much that I just couldn't get him to that over that. I had to retain something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kira, when they do meet each other, Kira sees that. She does actually see that, but it doesn't obviously help her with the events that happen and the death of Lila and things.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Hassan has, I think at that point, his eyes have been opened about what he's done. I mean, his friend has died at this point, and the other one who's with them, he's starting to have a bit of a relationship with. Keen, I think is that her name?
Keen, yeah. I love Keen. She's brilliant.
Yeah, she is fierce. I mean, talk about a fierce character. Yeah.
She was fun. She was a lot of fun to write.
Yep. And you know that I loved her role as well, because she becomes, it would be so easy to say, okay, good guy, bad guy. But what you have with Keen is a character who lets us see kind of the other view of things, because she's got a view of the rebels that is not flattering because of losses very personal losses that she suffered.
Yes.
So we can see in war and in conflict, there's no just good, bad here. There's a lot of complexity. And when there's violence of that sort and suffering, you know, there's nobody's hands are going to be clean, you know.
Yeah.
So that's well done as well, I would say, in there is that those levels of moral complexity are certainly in the story.
I love that. Abercrombie's so good at that. I mean, I mean, it sounds like such a fanboy, but like, he's just so good at that. The morally gray area. I just love that place, because there's so much in there to pick from in the human condition. It's just so much fun to write. It's
very cool. Another favorite of mine is Labe. Is that how you pronounce it, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, Labe. He's a great character. He's character that I liked a lot. I really identified with, and I thought, okay, this guy, he's got the stuff here. He's going to be the noble leader who's just, yes, he's practical and he's not selfish, and he's doing this for some real altruistic reasons. He's making these big sacrifices. Great guy. He's kind of I should have known, I guess.
I'm sorry. That's all I can say. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it's a Ned Stark moment for me. You know, when Labe dies, but I have to say that I found it compelling, though, that you did have him make this noble sacrifice. I thought that was a great arc for this character in this book. So I'm going to remember this character. And So, but yeah, no, I was sad to see him go. And that was one of the tough ones for me
It
because,
was tough for me as well.
sure.
I realized that that's where we were going.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I was still writing, and I was just like, I kind of feel like this, I know where this is going, but I kind of have to write this direction anyway. Uh, and then I got there and I was like, oh no, I have to do this. I'm going to have to do this. But
Huh.
I kind of feel like, as you say, it was a sort of perfect completion of his arc. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I can't get, if everyone survived, then, and good prevails. And
Yeah.
it's not the sort of story I was wanting to write. So
It's a hell of a way to go. It's like a little bit like maybe not the best analogy, but I'm a tennis fan, and Pete Sampras retiring after winning the U.S. Open. Of course he didn't die, but that was the end of the career. It was the perfect way to go out. Labe going out that way, making this noble sacrifice in the midst of the battle, so that this looked like a lost conflict until that moment, and that act of delaying the Boer king and everything else so that they could spring the trap.
yeah,
It was perfect. Yeah, so good way for him to go if he had to go, I guess. Yeah,
totally.
yeah. Yeah, good stuff. So I assume we're going to learn more too in the future books about these Boer and their motives and what they're after. And I'm glad you brought those pictures too, because I was just kind of visualizing them in different ways. And that the picture you brought makes me think of some, almost like troll-like, orc-like creature.
I can put them together. So I mean, there's a sort of like interspecies kind of thing going on where
Yeah, because obviously they're hybrids, right?
yeah, exactly. And and there's something I definitely wanted to do from the get-go was have this, humans are no longer top of the food chain up here. Like,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, and I love the social, the result of that, what's going to happen to economies, trade, everything. Because so much of what humans do is based around what we want, and consumer part of it. If you take that away, and they are no longer the top dogs, the top of the food chain, then it's going to make for some interesting conflict. So I set those kind of parameters, if you like, fairly early on. But then I wanted to apply this like humanistic element to it as well. So like one of the main characters is Wraith, and this is Jonathan's adaptation of him.
Oh, very nice.
So
yeah.
if you look at him and Lore, so they're brothers. If you look at them side by side, there's like Wraith is a sort of he's got more human elements to him. He is a human kind of Boer hybrid, and his job is actually kind of he is a human ambassador. His main job is to keep the humans in line. So
yeah.
And whereas Lord is a much more kind of free being. He's like the general of an army who happens to be babysitting the kin. But obviously he's got this other kind of mission, which is to gather path watchers and try and find a way of mapping Nord.
Right. Yeah, the new Lore is the scarier for me.
Yeah, I mean, Lord is, I tried to kind of write him as quite kind of chaotic evil, like he's completely unpredictable. And when there's a great scene actually when Lore and Wraith get together and they're just like sitting in a car, just talking to each other on the way to a council meeting. And that the interplay between them was so much fun because Lore is able to, the way he talks is very militarized and sort of but he plays games, like he plays military games, even the way he talks.
Yeah.
Whereas Wraith has got like goals. So he's less more about games, but he's more about kind of balance.
Right. Interesting.
That was a lot of fun to just this dialogue between them was I went over that a few times to polish it and just kind of really bring those moments out. So, and that was before they even got to the main part of the scene, which is in this big council hall. So but I kind of felt like it was an important, that scene itself, that chapter itself, is actually kind of made up of two scenes. There's a scene in the bit before the cart, and then the main scene itself in the council hall. And then there's a scene afterwards as well, which is all of these things deliver different parts of the story, and they're all kind of really quite integral to the plot. So it's quite a large. It used to be very, very political, that chapter. It was quite beefy and quite
interesting.
Yeah, but my editor, who was very ruthless, she kind of told me to kind of bring it down a bit. And so,
Good to have a ruthless editor. It really is, I think.
Yeah, he was really good. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Wow. And then the other character I want to make sure to mention is Fia.
Yeah.
And she plays, I mean, she's a poor thing. It's just trying to survive through all this. And my goodness, boy, did she go through the ringer. Yeah. And just great character too. You know, it's I had probably was biting my fingernails the most during her chapters. Poor thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the loss of her friend, that was a tough one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another kind of section that I'd been over quite a long time to get right.
Yeah.
Janique was she was originally two characters that had been merged.
Oh, okay.
Because I hadn't realized that I'd written two very similar characters.
Uh-huh.
And they were both doing similar roles. So my editor she was like, no, bring them together. And I did that. And I killed her about 6 or 7 different ways.
Oh.
Over the drafts. But each way became more and more like less about sort of the violent nature of her death and more about the meaning of her death.
Yeah.
I mean, another self-publishing note there. I think get a good editor, because they will see things that you just do not see, and they will make connections that are so important. So creating that emotional resonance between Janique and Fia was like so important.
Yeah.
And that made her death even more poignant when it did happen. So
it's a hard moment. It's a tough one. And I do feel like that is going to have an important role in Fia's development for the rest of the series. You know, it's not something that's going to just, disappear, that loss. Yeah,
definitely.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. And I know that my viewers are going to really appreciate hearing what you have to say about Ringlander. And I just wish you the very best too, as you continue the virtual tour and with your writing. It's just so exciting to talk to fellow. I mean, we're fantasy fans too, aren't we? So it's so much fun to kind of geek out and have a good time chatting. So it's really been a pleasure.
Talk about this all day, honestly.
Yeah, me too. So it's just been a real pleasure to actually meet you, Mike, and have this opportunity. It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. It's been great being a part of this, and thank you for having me.
All right, my pleasure. Until next time, everybody.
Catch you later.